Content over everything.
If she's playing with dolls at 9 years old, she's a child, mate. If you can't see that, no one can help you.
She's not ready. Her body's not ready to even bear a child.
Do you know in certain places in the Middle East there are wards for children who have had sex too young because their hips have not broadened out, right? Why do you think that's going on?
Well, again, you're still comparing it today to back then.
Do you think that Mohammed is the example for today?
100%.
Right. So would you allow... Have you got any children?
No, unfortunately not.
Well, God willing, one day you will have children and they will be healthy and well and live good lives. God willing, I pray that for you.
Thank you.
But let's say, do this thought experiment with me.
Go on.
You got a 9-year-old girl. Are you going to let her marry a 64-year-old man?
Not today. It's not in our culture. Again, like Shamsi said before, that was a cultural thing.
It's cultural.
So it's not an Islamic thing. Okay?
It's not an Islamic thing.
Because I would, as you can, I'm sure you've done a lot of study on hadith.
Yeah.
There is no hadith where the Prophet instructs us to go and marry women at the age of 9 or 6.
What's the age of consent in Islam?
There is no age.
There is no age of consent in Islam.
If those are the three criteria,
now,
she's physically, spiritually and mentally able, then she can get married. She has to also agree to it.
Yep.
So that's the criteria.
Do you think a 9-year-old child,
not today,
in the dependence of her mother and father, is in a state to refuse marriage to people who believe that he's a prophet?
Sorry, say that again.
I'm saying to you, Aisha didn't have a free choice. That's what I'm saying to you. Aisha, my evidence is that you've got a 9-year-old girl in the care of her parents in a community that believes that Muhammad was a prophet, and the prophet is saying, I'd like to marry your daughter. Do you honestly think that that 9-year-old child could turn around to her parents, her community, and this great religious figure and say, actually, no, I don't want to marry this old man?
She could have.
Dude, if you clearly, I can see you've not had children. I can see that. I'm telling you.
I'm not trying to compare
a child in her
today.
infancy.
I'm talking about her. The subject is about Aisha.
Yeah.
So there's no point comparing her to children of today.
A child in her infancy would not be able to give a free choice. She couldn't cognitively reason that it was right or wrong. She couldn't cognitively reason whether it was the right or the wrong decision for her. So your argument that she had a free choice is bogus. You're just saying that. Where's your evidence she had a free choice?
If she didn't have a free choice, she wouldn't have narrated so many hadith, and actually testified about how much she loved him, about their life together. None of that would happen if she didn't willingly marry him and live the next 9 years with him.
9 years. 9 years.
He died when she was 18.
She died when
he died.
He died when she was 18. Yeah. So in terms of living those.
Sorry, and do you actually know the reasoning behind this marriage and why Muslims aren't actually commanded to do so today?
The reasoning is irrelevant to the moral example that it provides.
But I'm asking you, do you know, not whether it's relevant or not, do you know the reasoning behind the marriage?
The argument that I'm making, the reasoning behind the marriage is irrelevant, because what we're arguing about is the fact that we have a system of laws called Sharia.
No, but you're making
allow me to demonstrate. Sorry. We have this system of laws called Sharia that is supposedly utopian in virtue, that is the answer to all the world's problems, and it doesn't even give an age of consent. It does not even give an age of consent. We can do better with secular liberal laws than we can with Sharia. Now, you're trying to argue to me that this man who had sex with a 9-year-old child is a moral example to me.
100%.
Right. I am saying to you
not because he had sex with a 9-year-old. That's not why. Because that's again.
Do you not think that would disqualify him?
No, it doesn't, because this was specific to him, and no other Muslim was instructed to do so.
Yeah.
Okay. So to use this example, to say that it disqualifies him, is not very strong.
So your argument is that Muhammad might have done it, but you don't have to do it.
We don't have to.
Right. So according to the Quran, right, when it talks about the period of waiting,
3 months.
3 months,
4
right?
months and 10 days.
And it lists, doesn't it, the groups that you have to wait for as being 3 months.
Yes.
What's the reason for the waiting period?
Pregnancy.
Pregnancy. You all heard that?
Yes.
Right. Listen to this verse very carefully. This is from Allah, so it gets worse. We're not talking about Muhammad, we're talking about what Allah says. All right? Such of your women, this is in Surah 65 and Ayah 4.
Surah 65,
all right? Surah 65, Ayah 4. Such of your women as have passed the age of monthly courses, that means people who have got into their menopause, for them the prescribed period, if ye have any doubts, is 3 months. Listen to the next bit. And for those who have no courses, for them, it is the same. For what do you call a woman who has no courses?
You know that there is a condition, I forgot the name, I'm trying to search it. There is a condition in which some women reach 25, 26, and some until they die, in which they never ever experience a period.
I mean, this is a nice modern apologetic.
No. Remember,
but this is, let's be clear. If you have any doubts, 3 months.
Okay,
for
yes,
those who have no courses, it is the same. This is talking about children who have not entered into puberty.
No.
And you just said that the waiting period is to make sure they're not pregnant. Yeah. Your mind and the mind of the Salafa was the same. You can have sex with kids.
No.
So, what is this referring to then?
I already told you. Let me see if I can find the
I know about the medical condition you're talking about.
Okay.
I know about the medical condition. So
Right.
you're saying it's about that?
Yeah.
You're saying it's about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you prove this otherwise?
Well,
because there are women. So when
I think
like I said, the book is
no, hold on.
It covers everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For those who have no courses, when it is comparing them to women,
let me find the verse.
As past the age of monthly courses, yeah, I think that is very clearly talking about children.
I just said it's not.
And we have the example of Muhammad, who had sex with a 9-year-old child.
Like I said, there is no hadith. Yeah, and there is no verse that tells us that we can do so, exactly what he did. Like for example, the things that he did that we are supposed to do are mentioned either in the Quran or the hadith.
Yeah.
The marriage to 9, 6-year-olds or whatever, that is not mentioned in either the Quran or the hadith.
But you've just said that in Sharia law, there's no age of consent.
There is no.
The guy's name?
Yeah.
PZ Myers, bro. I've been waiting for you
all
a couple of days.
Okay, cool, nice.
Right, so you're saying in Islam that you've got no age of consent.
Yes.
You're saying in Islam that Muhammad, as your example, can have sex with a 9-year-old child, and we're seeing in the Quran that it talks about women who have passed the age of having periods, and women who have not entered the period of
who have not entered.
having.
Some women never entered that period.
Right.
So which means they can get pregnant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's obvious. So that you
Where
cannot,
is your
you cannot
hadith?
limit that.
Where is your hadith?
Hold on.
Where is your hadith demonstrating to me that this ayah is talking about women who never have a period? Where's your evidence that that's the proper interpretation?
You want me to bring up a hadith when this condition was not known back then?
Thank you.
Come on.
This condition was not known back then. So what do you think it was talking about when it said for them the prescribed period, if you have any doubts, and 3 months, and for those who have no courses, it is the same?
Remember that there are several verses in the Quran that we had no knowledge in terms of biology, physics, astronomical knowledge back then, but we do today. All right, and the Quran covers it all, and it's a book that covers all time.
Right.
So just because we didn't know the condition back then does not mean it's not applicable to that condition.
It would be interesting to see what was the context by which this verse was revealed. But here's my point, brother. Here's my point.
Yeah.
Is that
my name is Mohammed, by the way.
Okay, Bob. Nice to meet you, Mohammed.
Nice to meet you.
So here's my point, Mohammed. Yeah. The reality is, when I look at Sharia law, and I look at liberal secular law, I think that we would be doing better to follow liberal secular law over Sharia law.
All right, well, that's a broad subject. Let's try to stick to
but
to this one.
But we're using this as an example, and this is why. Because in Islam, you don't have an age of consent, but in secular liberal law that we do.
Can I answer the age of consent?
Yeah.
Because you could have, in today's society, you could have a woman that's 25 years old, She's physically ready, but she might not be spiritually or mentally ready. True or not?
Yes.
Could that not be the case?
That could be the case.
Okay. So that's why we don't have an age of consent. Not because we're allowed to marry a 9-year-old or a 6-year-old. It's because women vary. Everyone's different.
Did you just admit you can marry a 9 and a 6-year-old?
I said it's not because we can. Okay.
Can you?
Physically.
Today's society, we all know children are not.
Yeah, but Shamsi's made this big deal about Western superior, that Western imperialism.
Well, he has
because
got a point when
we aren't using the ages of consent we find in Africa and the Middle East. But in places like Africa and the Middle East, we see places where children who are not ready to be married are being married and are then suffering physically because they're having sex.
Forced. Yeah.
No. They're not all being forced. They're not all being forced. They're living in cultures and contexts where they're expected to marry and they don't know any better and they marry. Go to Pakistan.
That's a lack of education.
Go to but yet Shamsi plays this.
But he has made a valid point when you say that even in this country, up until 100 years ago,
yes,
girls were able to get married at 7. So, and that's 1,300 years after the fact. And the other point that he brought up, which is that in his society, no one made an issue of it. Imagine this: the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was reprimanded by the pagans and the Jews and the Christians just for saying, "I believe in one God."
Yeah.
So saying "I believe in one God" isn't a big deal.
Yeah.
But according to you, marrying a girl at 6 and consummating it at 9 is a big deal. Why did they not say anything? If they made a huge deal.
Are you aware that the Byzantine? Go on, I'll let you finish.
Actually, well, go on. I think you probably knew what I was going to say.
Yeah. Are you aware that the Byzantine Empire in the 5th century, so that's 2 centuries before Islam, elevated the age of consent to 12 or 13 years old?
Yeah.
Okay. So even back in the classical world, before Islam was founded, cultures and civilizations were identifying that they needed to create a lower bar, a bar raising above 9. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say to you...
Remember that the Arabian Peninsula, the Arabs at the time were quite ignorant of cultures around them.
Yeah.
So that didn't filter into their culture.
I agree.
But
what I'm saying to you is that the Byzantines knew better than Muhammad.
That's not necessarily true. Just because they raised it doesn't mean that was better than that.
Would you like to as a Muslim, would you like to get rid of the age of consent in this country?
No.
So what you're saying is you would prefer the liberal secular law over Sharia law?
Sorry, ask the question again.
So, I'll ask you again. As a Muslim, do you want to get rid of the age of consent in this country?
No, I think it's fine.
Okay, so you're choosing now, because you've already admitted, and it's on camera, that in Islam there's no age of consent.
Yes.
You are admitting, so you're saying that you would prefer liberal secular law to Sharia law?
No.
Oh, so no.
No, it's not a contradiction. I know you're going to say it's a contradiction.
Square the circle for me.
Okay, because your second question was, would I prefer it? Not would I choose it, so you didn't give me a choice. Either this or that.
No.
It's a free country, man. You're a free man, yeah?
Hold on, but I don't have to assimilate.
You don't have to assimilate.
It's
interesting.
though, isn't it?
Anyway, like I said,
Doesn't have to assimilate.
Let him speak. Let's not behave like the Islamic Dawah team. Let him speak.
Don't behave like these Christian missionaries, yeah?
Ali Dawah. I debate you next.
Go, Ali.
I lost my trail of thought now.
The question was, you're on record as stating that in Islam there is no age of consent.
Yes.
Then you answered the question that would you want to get rid of the age of consent in this country, and you said no. So I want you to square this circle for me as a Muslim.
Okay.
Do you prefer the Sharia law, no age of consent, or do you prefer liberal secular law which says age of consent?
Right. I prefer no age of consent.
No age of consent. So as a Muslim, do you want to get rid of the age of consent in this country?
No. Right. No. Like I said, I know
your conscience is fighting. Your conscience is fighting your reason, friend.
No, the reason
your conscience is fighting your reason
for that. Personally, this is a personal thing. Because the age of consent as it is works fine with the multicultural society that we have. Within the Islamic community, the no age of consent thing works perfectly.
So you would like to get rid of the age of consent within the Islamic community?
Sorry?
Would you like to get rid of the age of consent within
Yes.
the Islamic community?
Well, that's our law. Sharia law, that's what we follow.
Okay, right. So what I'm hearing, yeah, is that you want to abolish any legal protection that a child has not to be married.
Actually, we already have a legal protection in place for them.
What is that? Show me the hadith.
Like I said.
So you said
the woman cannot get married
if
unless
they're
she's
physically, mentally, and spiritually, right?
And she has to give consent.
So show me where it says
hold
that.
on. She has to give consent.
So show me where it says that in the Quran.
In the Quran. Is there a verse, Ali? I can't remember. By the
maybe Ali, help him. Ali, help him. Ali, that one. Help him.
We're not.
Help your brother. Help your brother.
We're not encyclopedias, you know. There are things. You know.
He knows. He's Ali.
You are allowed to call a friend.
Yeah,
that's fine.
You can call a friend. You can
So
call a friend.
Ali, the question that I'm asking, right? The brother, Shamsi the first, the great caliph here. Shamsi ran off, as he always does. Shamsi ran off. So the question, it's on film. Everyone can view it and make their own mind up.
Yeah.
So the question that I asked was the defense given by Muhammad and Shamsi to Sharia law is that a woman cannot marry unless they're mentally, spiritually and physically able, and that for this reason you don't need an age of consent. So what I'm asking for is where in the Quran...
She also has to give consent.
And yes, she has to give consent.
Cannot be forced.
So what I'm asking for is where in the Quran or the hadiths does it show that a woman has to be mentally, physically, spiritually able to marry and give consent? Where's your evidence?
One verse in the Quran. Show me one verse in the Quran.
I'm going to answer the question. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to answer it so you guys understand, yeah? So I'm not answering Bob's question.
Not answering my question. No, I want you to answer my question.
Answer.
Ali Dawah, you're not here to kidnap this discussion. Answer the question.
Answer it like maybe this guy's asking me, yeah?
No, I'm asking you.
Answer Bob's question.
I'm going to answer the question.
He's going to rephrase my question.
So now, what I'm going to do is, guys, where does it in the Quran or the Hadith it shows?
One verse in the Quran.
Firstly, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is a clear-cut evidence because he married. One second. And basically, we're doing this. By the way, guys, if you haven't subscribed to me, Ali Dawah, subscribe to my channel. We'll release the video.
Patting yourself on the back. Self-promotion.
On the back, bro.
I thought pride and vanity wasn't a trait of a Muslim.
Thank you. Anyways, moving swiftly on. Nice. You don't know, bro. You know when you're boxing, somebody hits you up. Anyway.
So, answer the question, Ali.
Answer the question.
Answer the question.
The reason I said subscribe to my channel is not so I can be like,
We don't know.
you know what?
Answer the question.
Answer the question, Ali.
Boring, bro.
Brothers, they're shouting at me.
He's complaining that he's been shouted at. Every week I come here and get shouted at.
Yeah.
Have you guys finished?
So,
Yeah, you finished, yeah? We're not in a playground, we're not kids, yeah?
answer the question.
Answer the question. Okay. Calm down.
Hurry up.
Why are you stalling, Ali?
Stop stalling, bro.
You're stalling, Ali.
You're stopping me. You're stopping me.
Yeah, stop waffling.
You're stopping me.
So answer the question.
Answer Bob. Hurry up.
Relax. Calm down.
Before Christmas.
All right. Wait, I think he's going to answer the question that I asked.
Now, anyway,
go.
the reason I said subscribe to my channel is because...
The question, I'll restate the question. Ali,
Yes.
Ali.
It's about your channel, bro.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, we'll let him talk for a bit. We'll let him talk for a bit.
The reason I was saying subscribe to my channel is because one second, I'm gonna answer it. Calm down, relax yourself, calm down, have a coffee. Is because we'll be releasing 2 serious videos discussing this topic. Now, coming to the main question here, is you said where is the evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah? The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, married Aisha at 6, consummated the marriage at 9. Yes? Okay. Now, why did the Prophet wait 3 years? Why did he wait 3 years? Why? Why would, a paedophile who loves children, why would he wait 3 years for?
Okay.
So, one second, that's what I said. Bob, anyone can buy it, not you, anyone can. I'm answering the question. The Prophet, peace be upon him, the fact that he waited 3 years, why? Because Aisha was not ready to consummate the marriage because he wasn't mentally, sexually, and physically ready. And the Quran and the Sunnah says there's a harm factor, which means in this country the legal age is what?
Okay, so
I haven't finished.
right, Ali Dawa has given an answer. Ali Dawa. That's what he thinks. Yeah, that's what he thinks. Do you believe that? Do you believe that?
Ricky, I'm Ali. Yeah. Ricky, you raised a good question.
Ricky,
you raised a good question.
Ricky,
Bob, you're Bob the Builder. Just carry on building. Yeah. Okay.
Ricky.
Ricky, let's stick to the guy, man. The guy.
Ricky,
okay.
use your own mind. Is a 9-year-old child able to do that?
That's what I'm just asking.
But do you don't need, you can think for yourself.
Are you his brain?
He thinks so.
I'm asking.
So, Ali Dawa.
It just says that she was mature enough at that age to give consent. So
That's what he thinks.
Is a child of 9 years old actually mature enough? So I'm listening.
The reason tells you.
So, understand this.
Notice he's not actually answering my question.
Waited between 6 and 9.
What I'm going to do is...
Ali Dawa's argument is this. Ricky, he wants to isolate you. Ricky, don't let him corner you, man. Ali Dawa, answer the question. Ali, the question. So the question that I asked, you, Ali Dawa.
Answer Ricky.
No.
Can I answer Ricky?
You want to answer my question. Why don't you answer my question?
I will defend Ricky's freedom of speech.
The question that I asked you
I'm speaking to Ricky.
was where in the Hadith and the Quran does it demonstrate and say clearly that a child cannot marry unless they are mentally, physically enabled to do so? Ali Dawa's response was, well, Muhammad waited 3 years. What does that prove? It proves nothing. It just proves that Muhammad fancied a girl at 6 but realised he had to wait until she was a little older before he wanted to do something about it. It does not prove, it does not demonstrate that Muhammad instituted laws. He does not demonstrate, let me finish my point. It does not demonstrate an answer to my question. I asked the question, where in the Hadiths or the Quran does it stipulate clearly that a woman, a child, has to be mentally, physically and spiritually able to marry and give consent? That was the question. All Ali Dawa did is say that a man who had sex with a child waited 3 years before he did so. That doesn't prove the question that I'm asking. I'll ask you again, Ali Dawa. Where in the Quran or the Hadiths does Muhammad say, does Muhammad teach that you have to wait for someone to be mentally, spiritually, physically able and that they give consent? That is the question that I'm asking you, not how long a paedophile waits to rape a child. Answer the question.
I'm going to answer you. Yeah? If I get stopped once, I'm going to kindly move on. Yeah? Okay. Now, they're here for an agenda. I assume you're here to learn. Yeah. The question that was asked, I'm going to assume, is this: how do we know from the Quran and the Sunnah that, you see that behavior? You see that behavior? You know why? Because they know they're going to get debunked. Yeah. That's where. Anyway, sexually, mentally, and physically ready. I'm asking a very simple question. A paedophile who loves children, yeah, wants to commit sexual intercourse with children, yeah, why on earth would he wait 3 years? I just want to know. I want to know. A pedophile. Do you see that? You see that? You see that? You see that?
I love the
Look. When I was talking, did any of the Muslims buy in? Because you know why? You know the answer's hurting you, fam. It's poking you. It's poking you.
Ricky.
So, Ricky.
If someone waits
Ricky, there you go. Look. Look, have I finished my case?
Ricky, please.
I say best thing though is answer his question.
No.
I'm just going to ask my question.
I promise you, I'm going to answer this. But I'm just saying, they're not going to let me speak. So can I kindly just
Well, would you let him speak? Would anyone let him speak and give his answer to what he's saying? Everyone go listen to
Are you
him.
going to be
If
naughty?
he answers my question,
Are you going to be naughty?
I want him to answer my question.
Listen, let him get straight to the point and let him make his
Ricky,
point.
what's my question? What was my
You
question?
mentioned about the question
What was my question?
about one verse in the Quran where it gives consent.
So the question that I'm asking is in response to...
Bob,
The question that I'm asking Ali Dawah is
CD.
this.
You're repeating
He is
yourself.
trying to present Muhammad as a moral example to you today, and he's trying to say that Sharia law is what we need to follow today. And I am saying that we don't need to follow a man who had sex with a child. Now, their argument, their counter-argument, is that
Can I make my own counter-argument?
she was
Why are you making my counter-argument?
Let me make my counter-argument. It's on there. Everyone, just wait this space. Everyone have a turn. Let this man. I'm all being fair from both sides of the argument. Everyone be fair.
Answer my question. Answer my question. My question, Ali.
I want his answer.
He wants my question answered.
The question that was asked is, where is the evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah that a woman has to be sexually, mentally, and physically ready to consummate the marriage? Now, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in science of hadith, we have a principle. What is a hadith? Yeah, it's the Prophet's sayings, his teachings, his actions, even his silence. So when the Prophet does something, we follow it. Therefore, when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, married Aisha at 6, and let's put a context to it. Aisha was proposed to by another man before the Prophet. So hold on a second. We have 2 points here. Number one is this. In that society, they called the Prophet a magician. They said, you're a poet. They hated his guts. Not a single man from that day till this day, 50 years ago, brought this argument out. Not like him. You know, Christian missionaries like him, none of them brought this argument. 50 years ago, it started coming up. You know why?
You're not answering my question.
No, did I stop you? Did I stop you? Fam, even if I answer you, you're going to say I didn't answer you. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for Ricky.
Yeah,
so,
but Ricky wants you to answer my question.
I'm finishing.
So what verses are you going to?
I don't want.
What hadith?
There you go.
So I'm with my girlfriend anyway.
What verses and hadith?
No problem. Is there anyone that has a genuine question that I can...
I have a genuine question.
Would you like to hear me?
Why don't you want to answer my question?
This question. Can I?
Where is your hadith?
Can I?
Where's your hadith?
Can I? I'm sure you have the same answer, right? What's the question for what's going on?
I don't know, what's your question?
Okay, so I'll just explain it to you, yeah? Okay, thank you very much, yeah?
Okay, so
now,
Ali Dawah
doesn't
want to tackle my question.
The question that he's asking is this, yeah? The claim he's made is that the Prophet Muhammad...
team are marshalling to defend their Prophet from this kind of behaviour is to say that according to Muslim scholars, a woman, a child, must be mentally, physically, spiritually able and willing to give consent to have marriage. And if these criterion are met, then therefore it is okay. Now, I am therefore justified to ask, in this perfect system of laws, where in the Quran and the Hadiths is this stipulated? Ali Dawah's argument is simply to go on some convoluted argument based upon the fact that Muhammad waited 3 years before he had sex with a 9-year-old girl.
It wasn't just that.
That was his argument.
It wasn't just that, Bob. Go on.
The reality is
that's a Sunni narrative.
that Ali Dawah has not answered the question and has provided no evidence. Muslim scholars, scandalized by the critique that others are making of their Prophet, are innovating answers to the critique. They're making it up. The reality is that Muhammad wasn't bothered by these questions in his own day, and neither was anyone else. So no one was asking them. So the Muslim scholars didn't come out with these kinds of arguments. Sunni scholars came out with these arguments later. They innovated and invented laws based upon things that Muhammad didn't say and that Muhammad didn't do and that are not actually clear in the Quran. So a system of laws that is being invented from century to century, as Islam is, can hardly claim to be a perfect system of laws revealed in the 7th century.
Come take away everything from your humanity. Man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV.
They do protect. And you asked for, I've only pulled up one source for regarding consent. I can't find the other. Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. But over here, Aisha asked the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam if women must be asked for their permission on marriage.
Yep.
Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied, yes. She said the virgin is asked for her permission but gets shy. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said her silence is her permission. So, from that hadith,
silence is her permission.